the homeless action plan, one has to then keep in mind that what do we actually do to assist with addressing homelessness. And I do not have the detail of that. I would have to get that back to you.
Thank you. I think the point I just want to make is that freedom campers, homeless people are not freedom campers.
No, they're not.
And
that's right.
If you apply that law to an area that has homeless people, then there is a real issue, because that would be at odds with our homeless action plan, which is a sensitive, compassionate approach,
yes,
as opposed to you're making a noise so we can now move you on.
That's indeed correct.
We're going to review that anyway.
Any other questions, councillors? Oh, sorry, Councillor Cowell.
Yeah, I forgot to add, Your Worship, too, and I'd get shot if I didn't. In particular, the IMSP through this whole process, and in particular, one of our, well, I class him as a colleague, and that's Glenn.
Well, he is a colleague.
Yes.
And sadly, Glenn's not well at the moment, and I'm sure he'd be here today, but Glenn has done outstanding work on this bylaw process, tirelessly at every single bylaw just about. So I just want to acknowledge that, Your Worship. And as to Councillor Casey's concerns in regards to the freedom camping, we're going to go through that process, and I'm sure you'll be there as we go through that particular part of the bylaw, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Councillor Cowell. And yeah, our thoughts and best wishes are with Glenn at this time. He's had a little bit of a turn. I'm sure he'll be fine. And he has done outstanding work there and on behalf of the IMSP. Any other questions or comments? Okay, now we've got a move by Councillor Cowell. Is there a second, please? Councillor Sir John. All those in favour say aye.
Aye. Aye.
Passed. Right, move on to item 12. Item 12 is a report of the hearings panel on the proposed stormwater bylaw. Now, Councillor George, you chair this.
I was the chair of this.
We had Councillor Cowell, Councillor Bill, Councillor Chris, Councillor Alf, and Member Glenn. So a good-sized panel. I want to thank you all for your service, and George for your chairing. George, Councillor George, would you like to lead this in, please?
Well, I'll take the report as read, Your Worship. This bylaw started off when the stormwater bylaw was notified in September last year, and the hearings panel came together in November, and then at that stage it was found that there was a number of issues that needed to be worked through with the submitters, and therefore there was kind of the officers went away and did offline work with the submitters, eventually came back. The sticking point was around the utility operators and whether the bylaw applies to them. It was agreed in the end that the bylaw would apply to them. So this is an all-encompassing bylaw for management control of stormwater across the Auckland region. So I think that the conclusions and what's been achieved does give us a good way forward in relation to this management. So Helgard and the team are here to answer any of the technical questions, Your Worship, but I think that we've reached a good compromise situation. Thank you.
Very good. Right, I've got Councillor Cullen.
Yeah, thank you, Your Worship. And I just want to acknowledge the Chair's role in this one in particular. It was a bit of a tricky one as well. So I want to acknowledge Councillor Wood on that one. But also in particular the staff, because there were some challenges here, as Councillor Wood alerted to. But the staff, corralled the submitters and got the submitters in for a workshop and went through the concerns over time, over a couple of months period, and come to the conclusions we've come to. So I think we'll land in a pretty good spot with the same, Mr. Wood.
Yep. Very good. Any comments or questions?
I'll move the recommendation. Your
Right,
Worship.
George. Councillor George will move it. Councillor, is there a second, please?
Yes,
Councillor Bill.
Yep, that's
Right. All those in favour say aye.
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 Passed. Thank you very much, Helgard.
Thank you.
And
Thank you.
your team for their continuing good work. Councillor George, thank you for your chairing. Item 13. 13. This is the review of representation arrangements. 2019 elections. We have got Warwick and Margarita. recommendations are there, councillors. I'll move those. Is there a second?
I'll second it.
Councillor George will second. Right. Warwick or Marguerite?
Councillors, last year you established a working party to look at whether legislative change was warranted or required before the next representation review, which is going to have to take place before 2019. And the working party met several times. It comprised some of you as councillors, some local board members and chairs, and members of the AMSB. And the working party concluded that 2 legislative changes should be thought. The first one, introducing the ability for Auckland Council to change the number of governing body members. We are the only council where it is set in legislation, and it was set when the council was created. And the second one, which should be to allow the Local Government Commission to make minor changes to local board boundaries if they ended up being misaligned with ward boundaries after a representation review.
Very good. Right. Councillors, questions? Councillor Linda.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. On this committee, we came up with this because we felt that with the amalgamation, we were somewhat unduly constrained, unlike other local governments around the region. And in some ways, this is just asking to have the ability, just like every other council does around the country, so that we can be in line with them, because we felt as if, okay, we've done the time now for whatever crime it was, and now it's time to self-determine, just as other councils do.
Very good. Right, I've got Councillor Cathy.
Just to ask if the working party had much discussion on Maori representation through either Maori wards or Maori seats on council.
Through the chair, yes, it did. And actually one of the reasons why that legislative change is thought is that if the future council decided to introduce Māori wards, it means that the number of councillors could be adapted.
So is that part of the recommendation?
The decision to whether to have Māori wards or not, it was not part of...
No, the ability to have, is that part of the recommendation? It's just I didn't see it written down there.
Read it? It wasn't part of the brief.
Through you, Your Worship, the approach that we've taken to remove a set limit on the number of councillors completely makes that possible.
That's fine. Thank you.
Right, Councillor Alf.
Thank you, Your Worship. I was going to mention the Māori representation, so that one's been answered. But I think it is important, and especially around the legislative change that we're pushing, around that 20. Because, I mean, over the last 5 years, we've grown around sort of 1 to 2% every year. And I mean, having just the 20 there, then possibly having 2 Māori wards across Tāmaki will then minimise at least the numbers around fair representation across Tāmaki when and if the Māori wards are in. So that legislative change is very important, Your Worship. So, yeah,
okay,
support it.
Councillor Chris.
Thanks, Marguerite and Warwick. I just want to be clear that the A only refers to the number. It doesn't actually refer to opening it up at a later date as to the membership per se. I'm just, should that A be the set membership number to make it quite specific, if you can confirm it is about the number?
It is.
It is.
I'm wondering if the mover and seconder...
the number of members.
Okay.
It's already got there.
Very good. Okay, right. Any other speakers? No, then I'll move. It's been moved and seconded. All those in favour say aye. 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 Against, opposed. Councillors, move to item 14, Audit and Risk Committee Chair. Councillors, this is a report to you from a decision that I've made with regard to the chairing of the Audit and Risk Committee. There are 3 things that I want to acknowledge here on your behalves. The first is the service of Sir John Walker As the chair of the Audit and Risk Committee, this is not an easy job. And I want to acknowledge his service, and you will also acknowledge that John's decision to retire in his role is probably not one that he wants to make, but he has made that decision from his own right. And John, you know, we love your presence around our table and your continued presence. And we know how much you enjoyed your role in the chairmanship, and very much appreciate the thought that you have given to your decision. So can we all together acknowledge the chairing of the John? Now, the second point is the placement of Councillor Bill Cashmore as the chair, and you recognise that I have a statutory role to play here. My decision to ask Councillor Bill to chair this committee was first of all predicated on the importance that I place on sharing the leadership around this chamber. That is the first and was the preeminent consideration. And you will know that Councillor Bill does not have a formal leadership role. And I felt that given his background and the work that he's shown thus far, that it was appropriate for Bill to be appointed in the role of chairing this committee. I also reflect on his commercial acumen. Now, it has been reflected on through officers over recent months in particular, as we really get to know and understand the nature of this organisation and of the very considerable responsibility, financial and probity responsibilities we have, of the importance of the role of audit and risk. And there is discussion as to whether or not we should have independent leadership and independent membership of this committee. And I think that that's something that we as a body, and certainly I as the leader, will continue to reflect on through this term in terms of directions to future councils. This committee will become in time increasingly important, and the need for it to reflect as independently as possible I think will become increasingly important. And it's fair to say that the Auditor General has also reflected on that to me too in some of the discussions that we have. So Bill, I want to acknowledge your appointment as the chairperson of the Audit and Risk Committee, and I take this opportunity to wish you well. Can we please acknowledge Bill? Councillors, I want to acknowledge also one of your members, Councillor Cathy Casey.
Don't do that.
Councillor Cathy has taken the opportunity of resigning from this committee, and I partially, if not totally, blame myself. I did not take the opportunity, as I should have done, and within the organisation, to discuss the appointment of the chair with her. She has conveyed to me her deep disappointment at the lack of consideration. And so, as I've pointed out to you, my decision for appointing Councillor Bill was based on wider considerations. But I have conveyed to Councillor Cathy my apology, and I make the reiteration of that apology here to you all. And although she's not here at the moment, it's important that that be conveyed to her, at the very least as a courtesy. So, councillors, we are now on the basis of Councillor Cathy's view, and I completely understand it, and it certainly does not detract from, at any point, my appreciation for the work that she's done in support of Councillor Sir John in his chairing role, and then secondly, in her continued good work around this chamber. What it does mean, though, is having decided that she can't be either the deputy or a member of that there's availability on that committee for us to fill. I have received acknowledgement from a couple of councillors that